So the question, formally, question 5 that we're going to be asking today is this. Name and describe 3 sub-virtues of prudence and then 2 types of imprudence. So what we're going to say is that, remember, the cardinal virtues, the 4 cardinal virtues or fundamental virtues, give for us sort of these umbrellas or filing cabinets under which other good habits fit. So the sub-virtues that fit under the virtue or the umbrella of prudence are memory, docility, and what we're going to call nimble decisiveness. So in today's video, what we're going to do is quickly walk through each of these sub-virtues and then introduce to you 2 bad habits of imprudence, imprudence being the vice. So the first thing we're going to discuss today is memory. Memory is crucial for being able to make good decisions, and at times can be a matter of praise or of blame. So memory is going to be very important. And the reason memory is important is because memory can contribute to the actions that I take. And in order to make good decisions, I at times need to have an accurate memory of the way things actually are. So for instance, here's how memory usually works. A kid gets into a fight in the cafeteria, a kid gets into a fight after school, wherever he is, he's called into the dean's office and the dean said, "What happened?" What's going to happen is the kid is going to remember things in a way that benefits him. Right? In other words, most people's memory works in a way that benefits themselves. So what they do is they neglect things that they might have done wrongly. Right? So in other words, when I describe my story and tell that this kid punched me in the face in the cafeteria, I leave out the fact that it's because I called him a name. Or I leave out the fact it's because I talked to his girlfriend even though he told me not to. So what I do is I leave out things that I've done wrong, and then what I do is I accentuate or highlight exactly what that person did unjustly to me and how much I suffered unjustly at the hands of others. The reason we're going to say is that that is not going to work for truthful memory is because that's not the way things actually are. So being able to make good decisions, being able to have a truthful account of the way things actually are means that I have a good memory. Right? It remembers that I describe things truthfully, that I speak about things truthfully, and I remember things for the way that they actually happened and not for the way I wish them to be. This is also going to be true at a communal level, at a societal level. People, citizens, nations must remember things truthfully. They must remember their own past truthfully and not in a way that's skewed. So in our country, you look at the horror of slavery. In other countries, you look at the horror of the way regimes have treated various peoples. You look at what happened with Hitler's reign, right? Nations must remember truthfully, right, what they have done. The Catholic Church must remember truthfully what the church has done. In other words, we can't skew our history, our own personal history, our own political or societal history. We must remember our history accurately, because if we do not, if we fail to do that, it actually inhibits our ability to make good practical decisions, because we're not making our decisions on something that's truthful. Rather, our distorted memory is actually going to lead us to make decisions that don't accurately reflect the truth or the way things are. The next sub-virtue of prudence that I would like to discuss is docility. Docility is an open-mindedness. It's a willingness to accept guidance from others. In other words, I'm not closed off and I don't shudder away from people. I engage with people. I'm willing to enlist their help and their guidance in order to see things more truthfully and thus act more rightly. So if I'm playing basketball for Coach Gomes, and Coach Gomes instructs me that I should change my shot from the line by adjusting my hands a certain way, and I'm totally closed off to what he has to say to me, right? That's a lack of docility. If a teacher says to me in math, hey, you know what, you would really benefit from doing this practice set, and you just think to yourself, what does this person know? I don't need to listen to them. I'm fine at math. That's a lack of docility. Part of living a good life, part of prudence is actually an open-mindedness, a willingness to accept guidance from others, that I don't know everything, that I shouldn't pretend to know everything. And a good sense of docility means that I'm open and willing to learn from others. So you think of like animals, right? Animals are very docile, right? You think of a horse, you think of a dog, right? Fill in favorite animal here. You can train the animal because the animal is open to, right, being directed, being led, being guided. The same is true for the human person. The human person should be open to guidance from others because that's how you grow. I don't know everything. I'm a social creature. I need to interact with my communities in order to help me to see and do the good. So the opposite of docility is a disregard. It's a cruelty. It's a disobedience. It's a defense, right? Oh, I don't need to listen to you, coach. My jump shot's just fine. Or, oh, I don't need to practice my Spanish anymore. That's just fine. Or when my guidance counselor says, you know what? I think you need to apply to other safety schools just to ensure your success of getting into a good college. What does she know? Right? So actually a good life means that I'm docile, that I'm open, and I have a willingness to take guidance from others. The greatest example of docility for us is Mary, the mother of Jesus, who is open to receiving God's call for her in her life. So what we'll say is that from a Christian perspective, right, actually I need to be docile in my prayer to allow God to form me, to allow God to move me. And Mary is the perfect image of this. Mary, right, who allows herself to be formed by God himself. She's open-minded. She's not closed off. She's not defensive. She's not disobedient. Rather, she puts herself in a position to freely receive from God. And next semester, what we'll talk about is how this is the goal of the Christian life, to be docile, to allow myself to be moved by God. It entails an act of trust because I actually am afraid of being deceived, right? So obviously God's never going to deceive me, but persons can, right? So part of being docile means I know who to ask guidance for, right? So if I came up to you and told you how to work on your jump shot, right, you should laugh me out of the room. I'm a terrible basketball player. But if someone who's reasonable, reliable, trustworthy, right, if they're giving you instruction, right, you should listen to them, right? So if you were thinking about studying any type of humanities in college, right, maybe that's a conversation we would have because that's an area that I'm familiar with, right? Where if you ask me what school you should go to get into a good biology program so that you can go to medical school, I would have no idea. Right? But if you said, yeah, you know what, I'm thinking about studying philosophy because I want to be an ethicist who does work in a hospital, well, that's something that I could at least be in the ballpark of having a reasonable conversation with. So part of docility just doesn't mean I'm blind and I listen to everybody, right? It actually means that I know who to trust and when and who I can really go to ask guidance for. And there's a lot of good people at Hendricken who can do exactly that. When we fail to hear out others, when we have this deep fear of deception, it leaves us closed-minded and half-blind. So we need to be willing to hear from others. We need to conquer the fear of deception. And we need to live with our eyes open and not half-closed and not closed-minded to what's going on around me. How can I practice the good habit of docility when I'm at school? I can regularly consult my teacher, regularly consult my friends, my mentors, and I can seek guidance and then accept that guidance well. That's what docility is. It's actually something that I can practice just about every day with my friends, my teachers, and those that I look up to in my communities around me. That was the first class I ever taught at Hendricken, period A, in Miss Andrews' room in the 300 wing. Good guys. The next sub-virtue of prudence we want to look at is nimble decisiveness. So far we've spoken about memory, we just spoke about docility, and now what we want to talk about is nimble decisiveness. Nimble decisiveness is an important sub-virtue of prudence because it's an ability to quickly size up a situation, specifically a situation that's unexpected, and then to act well to still bring about the good goal. So a small example of this might be, there I am at Hendricken. I tell my buddies after school on Wednesday, we are going to go to wherever to go grab a burger. I don't have a car. My buddy doesn't have a car. The guy who's supposed to drive us is a no-show. I still want to bring about the good goal of hanging out with my friend, but this unexpected situation now calls for nimble decisiveness. So what I would do is size up the situation by looking around to see how I can still bring about that good goal. Is there somebody else with a car who can give us a ride? Can we borrow a car, maybe while someone's at baseball practice or in the band room? Or is there someone or somewhere we could go that's closer and just walk? Right? So maybe we end up going to Picasso's. Maybe we end up taking a walk over to Twisted, right? Wherever it might be. I can still bring about those good goals because I use nimble decisiveness, the ability to size up a situation quickly and still respond to it. So actually, this is what Hendrickens had to do just about every day of the quarter, it seems, right? They've had to size up the COVID situation and then actually make an accurate response to the way things actually are, sort of in the moment, right? So unexpectedly, 10 teachers are out because they're waiting for COVID tests or whatever it might be. The school now has to make a decision using nimble decisiveness, size it up, react promptly to what is going on around you. Another example. Dad's taking his son for a bike ride. He's in an area in the woods where he has no cell service. The kid falls, he hurts himself. He's the only one there, so he can't run and go get help and leave his kid. What does he do? Right? Nimble decisiveness is the sub-virtue of prudence that's going to help him size up the situation and respond in a way that's truthful. Okay? So the prudent person displays nimble decisiveness when they make good, practical decisions in unexpected situations. So that concludes our portion on the 3 sub-virtues of prudence, or the 3 sub-virtues of right reason and action: memory, docility, and nimble decisiveness. The imprudent person, or imprudence, is a vice. It's a bad habit of not making practical decisions well. So the prudent person makes practical decisions well. The imprudent person is not able to make practical decisions well. It's a bad habit. There's 2 sub-vices of imprudence. The first is thoughtlessness. A person who is thoughtless acts quickly. They jump. They're reactionary without adequately or properly attending to the situation. And because they don't properly think about it or comprehend it, they fail to obtain for themselves a truthful grasp of the situation, and therefore they make a hurried or thoughtless decision, which does not help them to act most properly. The second type of imprudence or bad habit is going to be irresoluteness. This is the person who endlessly deliberates and debates what is it that they should do, but they never actually let such deliberation translate into action. So go back to the father on the bike path who the phone's not working and there's no one around, right? He thinks for so long about what it is that he should do. He doesn't actually do it. He doesn't actually do anything because his deliberation takes so long. You'll see this with seniors. They deliberate for so long. All right, I got into all these colleges. Now where is it that I should go? Right? And they never actually make an action. Right? So thoughtlessness is sort of a hurriedness to a situation without properly sizing it up. So if the kid fell and the father just ran away without thinking and sizing up the situation, that'd be thoughtlessness. It doesn't truthfully grasp the situation. Irresoluteness is the opposite of that. It's deliberating on and on and on about what I should do. If a student's disrespectful to me in class and I think for days about, oh my gosh, what should I do? Should I give them a detention? Should I not give them a detention? Right? That deliberation might never translate into action. That's what we call irresoluteness. I'm just sort of stuck constantly thinking and not putting it into action. Prudence demands that I put my right reason into action.